Sure. Here is part 1, expanded to about 1,300 words in simple basic English. The writing is engaging, smooth, and free of any inappropriate or violated content.
As you requested.
Emily had always dreamed of working at a beautiful restaurant. The Rosewood Bistro was just that place full of shining glasses, bright white tablecloths, and the sound of soft music in the background. Every evening, people from all walks of life came through its doors, but Emily had never seen a night quite like this one. It was a Saturday evening, and the restaurant was full. People talked and laughed, enjoying their food in the gentle light from the hanging lamps. The whole place felt warm and alive. The kitchen was busy too. Chefs shouted orders, and the smell of good food filled the air. Emily moved quickly between tables, balancing plates and glasses with steady hands. She wore her hair tied back, and a small golden pin with her name was fixed on her shirt. It was her favorite pin, a gift from her younger sister. Emily was only 23, but she worked hard every day to help her family. Her mother was sick and could not work, and her father's small business had not been doing well lately. Every tip, every shift, every smile mattered to her. She always tried her best with every customer, even on days when her feet hurt or she felt tired. That night, as Emily was clearing plates from one table, she saw the manager, Mr. Harris, standing by the entrance. He looked more serious than usual. Emily could tell something was different. She saw a tall man in a dark suit enter the restaurant, followed by a group of people who looked very important. Some guests even turned their heads to watch them. The tall man's face was familiar. She had seen him on TV before. He was one of the city's most famous billionaires, known not just for his wealth, but also for his strong opinions and short temper. The billionaire's name was Mr. Andrews. He was known to buy and sell big companies, and newspapers often wrote about his success. Emily had never met someone so powerful. She tried to steady her nerves as Mr. Harris approached her. "Emily," Mr. Harris whispered quietly, "I want you to take care of Mr. Andrews' table tonight. Please do your best. He's important, and we want to make sure he's happy." Emily nodded. She felt nervous, but she also felt ready for the challenge. She took a deep breath, put on her best smile, and walked over to the VIP table. Mr. Andrews and his guests were already looking at the menu. The billionaire seemed impatient, his eyes moving quickly around the room. Emily could feel his strong presence. "Good evening, sir." "Good evening, everyone," Emily said politely, her voice calm and friendly. "My name is Emily. I'll be serving you tonight. May I offer you some water or something to drink while you look at the menu?" Mr. Andrews did not answer right away. He barely glanced at her. One of his guests, a woman in a red dress, smiled at Emily and asked for sparkling water. Mr. Andrews finally looked up and spoke in a quick, sharp tone. "I want my usual," he said, not looking at Emily. "You do know what that is, right?" Emily hesitated. She did not know what his usual order was, but she tried to hide her worry. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm new here. Could you please let me know what you'd like tonight?" Mr. Andrews sighed loudly. Some of his guests looked uncomfortable. Emily apologized again and promised to bring the drinks right away. She hurried to the bar, repeating the drink orders in her head. Wanting everything to be perfect, the next few minutes were busy for Emily. She brought water, sparkling water, and a few glasses of wine to the table. Mr. Andrews did not say thank you, but his guests did. Emily noticed that he looked annoyed, checking his watch often. She tried not to take it personally. Some people were just more difficult than others after taking their food orders. Emily went straight to the kitchen and handed in the tickets. She told the chef that the billionaire was waiting for his appetizer. The chef nodded, promising to be quick. Emily kept checking on the kitchen, her heart beating fast. She wanted everything to go smoothly. Back at the table, Mr. Andrews began to tap his fingers on the table, making a soft but steady sound. His guests tried to talk about business and laughed politely, but everyone could feel his growing impatience. Emily checked the kitchen once more. The appetizers were almost ready. She returned to Mr. Andrews' table to let him know the food would be out in just a moment. She kept her voice gentle and professional. "Sir, the kitchen is working hard on your appetizer. It should be ready in just a few minutes." But Mr. Andrews frowned. "A few minutes? That's not good enough," he said, his voice rising. This is supposed to be the best restaurant in town. I don't come here to wait around for food. Do you know who I am?" Emily tried to stay calm, even as some nearby tables turned to look. "I'm very sorry for the wait, sir. I'll check with the kitchen again," she said. Mr. Andrews shook his head and leaned back in his chair. "Unbelievable," he muttered loudly enough for others to hear. Emily rushed back to the kitchen, where the chef handed her a tray with the appetizers. She thanked him and quickly carried the tray out to the table. She set the plates down carefully, hoping her hands would not shake. She smiled even though she felt nervous. "Here are your appetizers, sir. I hope you enjoy them," Emily said. Mr. Andrews did not smile back. Instead, he glared at her. "About time," he said loudly, his voice echoing through the restaurant. Some guests nearby looked over, curious and surprised. Emily tried to keep her smile. She poured water for the guests and asked if they needed anything else. Mr. Andrews ignored her. Emily walked away, her cheeks hot with embarrassment, as she reached the server station. She overheard people whispering about the billionaire's rude behavior. Some guests shook their heads. Emily felt tears prick at her eyes, but she forced herself to stay strong. She thought about her family and why she needed this job. She reminded herself that no matter what, she would not let anyone make her feel small. The rest of the evening was tense. Every time Emily walked past Mr. Andrews' table, she felt his eyes following her. He complained about the food, the service, even the music. Each time, Emily answered politely and did her best. She was determined to keep her dignity, no matter how difficult he became. But as the evening went on, Mr. Andrews grew even more impatient. When his main course was delayed by just a few minutes, he snapped. He slammed his fork on the table and stood up, his face red with anger. The whole restaurant went silent. "Is this how you treat your customers?" he shouted at Emily, his voice booming. "You make me wait. You mess up my order and you think you can get away with it. This is not how you run a business. You should be fired for this," Emily froze. Everyone in the restaurant stared at her. She could feel their eyes, their shock, and their pity. She wanted to disappear, but she also wanted to stand her ground. Her hands shook as she tried to speak, but no words came out. Mr. Andrews continued to yell, listing every small mistake, blaming her for things out of her control. His voice filled the room, and for a moment, it seemed like time had stopped. The other waiters watched from the corner, unsure what to do. The manager hesitated at the edge of the room, worried about making the billionaire even more upset. Emily stood still, trying to hold back tears. She remembered her mother's words, "Never let anyone take away your self-respect." She took a deep breath, unsure of what would happen next. The whole restaurant was waiting, watching, as the tension hung heavy in the air. "Let me know when you want part 2 expanded, or if you want any changes." Emily stood frozen for a moment, her chest tight and her heart pounding. The sound of Mr. Andrews' voice filled the room like thunder. People around her whispered quietly, some holding their breath. She could see the faces of other customers' surprise, discomfort, even pain. She felt small, but she also felt something inside her rising. She remembered the look on her mother's face when she told her how hard she worked, and the promise she made to her little sister to never give up. The words from her mother came back, "You can be strong and kind at the same time. Speak with truth, but hold your head high." Emily opened her mouth, but the billionaire kept talking. He shouted about the restaurant's reputation, about how he was wasting his time, and how service like this was beneath the status of someone like him. His guests tried to put their hands up to quiet him, but they stayed silent. They looked divided. Some were nervous, some embarrassed, some hoping. The storm would end soon. Mr. Harris, the manager, stood a few steps away. He held a small notepad in his hand, but his fingers tightened around it. He had seen many difficult customers before. He had seen people yell and threaten, but he had never seen someone attack a young server like this, while the whole place watched. He knew Mr. Andrews had money and influence, and he also knew that a wrong move could bring anger on the restaurant. Still, Emily had been doing her job. She had been honest, polite, and trying her best. Mr. Harris opened his mouth to step forward, but he stopped. He didn't want to make the billionaire angrier. He held back. Emily's body shook slightly. Her apron felt heavy against her legs. She kept her eyes down for a second, breathing slowly. She did not want to cry in front of everyone. She thought of the long hours, the days when she had almost given up, the way her family depended on her. She also felt anger, not a wild anger. That would hurt someone, but a steady, quiet fire that said, "This is not right." The restaurant was still. The soft music that had played earlier seemed far away. Plates on other tables were untouched. People watched with a mix of hope and fear. Emily heard a child whisper to his mother, "Why is the man yelling?" The mother put her finger to her lips, but her eyes did not leave Emily's face. Mr. Andrews kept talking. "You people don't understand service. You are all weak. This place is not what I expected." He turned to his guests. "You see this? This is what happens when you trust them. I will never come back." Emily held her posture. She kept her voice soft when she finally spoke. She did not answer to the shouting right away. She waited until he took a breath. "Sir," she said, "I am truly sorry that you feel unhappy. I asked the kitchen to move faster. I did what I could. I want to help you have a better meal." Mr. Andrews laughed, a sharp sound. "You want to help? You can start by doing your job right. I expected more from this place. I expected more." "From you?" He leaned forward, pointing his fork toward her. Emily could feel the layer of silence become thicker. One of his guests, the woman in the red dress, looked away. She lowered her head and stared at the tablecloth. Another guest, a middle-aged man with gray hair, quietly touched Mr. Andrews' shoulder, trying to calm him. The billionaire shrugged his hand away, still looking angry. Behind Emily, other servers moved slowly. They did not want to make things worse. Some of them had seen customers treated unfairly before. They knew how the power in the room could shift in seconds. But many of them felt something like shame. They knew Emily did not deserve this. They also knew she had done her best, even if the man at the table had refused to see that Emily felt the weight of the room. She could have walked away. She could have asked Mr. Harris to handle it. She could have let someone else take over. She also felt that if she stepped back now, something inside her would break. She remembered her sister's voice from a week ago when she had called to ask if Emily could help pay for a medicine. Her sister had said, "You always fight. Keep going." I am proud. That small pride gave Emily strength. Mr. Andrews turned to the manager. "Do you see this? Is this what you call service?" "I want a new server. Send her away. I want someone who knows what they are doing." Mr. Harris stepped forward slowly, his face calm. "Mr. Andrews, I'm sorry you feel this way. I can send someone else, or I can help make sure the rest of your meal is good. We want you to have a great experience." His voice was careful. He did not defend Emily fully. He tried to protect the restaurant from more damage. He did not want to lose a big client. The billionaire looked at him like a king deciding a sentence. Emily heard the manager's words, and she felt both relief and guilt. She wanted Mr. Harris to stand up more for her. She also saw that he was trying to hold the situation from tipping into a bigger disaster for everyone. She swallowed the feeling in her throat and looked at Mr. Andrews. He had a deep crease between his eyebrows now. He was breathing hard, but he did not seem to be slowing down. The wind outside blew by the window, making the small plants on the sill move slightly. Inside, the air felt heavy, like a room full of old books. No one moved. Emily could feel the heat in her cheeks, not from embarrassment anymore, but from the fire growing in her. She knew that if she did not speak soon, she might lose more than just her job. She might lose the chance to show who she really was. She stepped back carefully. She did not let her hands shake too much. She lifted her chin a little. She took a breath that filled her lungs. She had thought about this moment in her mind 1,000 times over the years when a customer had been rude. She always tried to push it away. But this time was different. The man did not need to break her. He did not need to take her voice. Emily found her words. She spoke louder this time, but not with anger. Her voice was firm and clear. "Sir, I am trying to help. I did not mean to upset you. I am asking only for respect, just like I give to everyone here." The sentence slipped out slowly, with care. For a second, nothing happened. The restaurant held its breath. Mr. Andrews' mouth opened just a little. His eyes moved. From her face to the manager's, the woman in the red dress stopped fidgeting. The gray-haired man had his hand still on the table. Even the child whose mother had whispered earlier looked up, his eyes wide. Emily kept going, her voice quiet but strong. "I will do everything I can to fix the problem, but I ask that you treat me like a person, not a mistake. I know you are upset, and I want to help. I just need to know we can talk without yelling." The words spread across the room like a small light in the dark. Some people's mouths opened slightly. Mr. Harris looked surprised. The other servers shifted. The whispering started again, but this time, the tone was different. It wasn't about the billionaire's anger. It was about the young woman standing. With her head held high, people were starting to feel something new: respect for her, and a question in the air about what would happen next. Mr. Andrews' face changed. The red in his cheeks faded a little, replaced with confusion. He did not expect her to speak like that. He had seen people break before. He had seen them apologize and run. Emily did not do that. She stayed. She did not shout back. She did not cry. She asked for one thing: to be treated with respect. The silence after her words felt heavy, and also like a turning point. The restaurant was watching, waiting to see what he would do. Let me know if you'd like part 3 next, or if you want any adjustment to tone or pacing before continuing. The moment Emily finished her sentence, the air in the restaurant shifted. It was a simple sentence, but it landed like a quiet bell in a loud room. "Sir, everyone deserves to be treated with respect, no matter who they are." The words held. No anger, only truth. For a second, no one moved. The soft background music faded, and the clinking of forks and glasses slowed. It felt like the whole place was holding its breath. Mr. Andrews froze. His mouth opened slightly, and the anger in his face softened into confusion. He had spent a life used to people bending, apologizing, lowering their eyes. He was not ready. For someone to hold their ground with calm strength, his guests stared at Emily. The woman in the red dress looked up, her eyes wide. The gray-haired man put his napkin down slowly. Even the servers who had been watching from the side now leaned forward a little, as if they could hear better. Someone near the back of the restaurant, a young couple, stopped talking and turned their heads. A child with a small face looked from his mother to Emily, then back, like he was watching a story begin. Mr. Harris, the manager, was the first to break the silence. He stepped forward, but this time he did not speak as a shield for the restaurant's big customer. He spoke with a quiet firmness that matched Emily's. "Mr. Andrews," said, "this restaurant stands for more than just good food. We also believe in respect. Emily has done all she can to help. If something went wrong, we will fix it. But we do not allow anyone to speak to our team in that way." His voice was calm, not loud, but the words carried weight. A few servers near the kitchen straightened. Their eyes met Emily's briefly and gave a small nod, a quiet show of support. The billionaire's face shifted again. For a few seconds, he looked like a man trying to read a new page in a book he thought he knew by heart. His guests exchanged looks. One of them, a younger man with a slim tie, cleared his throat. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we can take a moment and continue this quietly. The place does have a good reputation. Maybe we all just need a fresh start." His words sounded like a small bridge, an attempt to move away from the storm. Mr. Andrews did not answer right away. He held Emily's steady gaze for a moment. She stayed calm. Her hands were still, her back straight. She did not shrink. She had not planned to say anything more. She only wanted to make a point and protect her own quiet strength. The room was silent again. But now the silence had a different weight. It was no longer full of fear. It was full of waiting. The billionaire finally spoke, his voice lower. "You think you're right, little girl?" He did not use her name. His tone tried to sound strong, but there was a crack in it. The gray-haired man at his table cleared his throat and looked away. The woman in the red dress slowly set her fork down. Emily felt a small flash of worry. She had not wanted to embarrass anyone, only to stand up for respect. She held her breath. Just enough to feel the tension, but her face stayed calm. Mr. Harris stepped slightly closer to Emily, not to protect her from the words, but to stand beside her. He looked at Mr. Andrews. "She's not a child," he said softly. "She's one of our staff, and she deserves the same basic courtesy we give to our guests." The billionaire's jaw tightened. He looked around the room. The other diners were watching now, not because the show had started, but because something real was happening. A few of them had small smiles at the corner of their mouths. One older woman near the window reached for her husband's hand. The husband nodded slowly, his eyes still on the table. The whispers that had been about the billionaire's temper earlier were now quiet, but they changed.
Ow.
They were not about shock anymore. They were about support. The breath someone had been holding let out in a tiny sigh of relief or agreement. Emily felt her heart beat. Not from fear now, but from the strange mix of nerves and calm that comes when someone stands for what is right. She had not expected the manager to back her, not like this. It was the first time in a long while she felt seen. Not as a servant who could be pushed, but as a person. Her body did not shake. She waited. She had said what she needed. She watched what would come next. Mr. Andrews picked up his glass of wine, raised it slowly, then set it down again without drinking. He looked at Emily one more time, then at Mr. Harris, and finally at the group around him. The woman in the red dress leaned toward him, placing her hand gently on the table. "We can stay," she said softly. "We came here to finish our talk. Let's do that." Her voice did not carry the same sharpness as earlier. It had a quiet strength of its own. A few of the guests at other tables let out soft breaths, like they were relieved someone had spoken. The billionaire's shoulders lowered a bit. He took a long breath and sat back. "Fine," he said, not smiling, "but I still want the best meal. I expect things to go better now." There was a distance in his voice, but the fight had cooled. The room seemed to relax slightly. The quiet tension turned into a careful WATCHFULNESS. Emily nodded to him. "Yes, sir. I will make sure of it." Her voice was soft, but this time it held a quiet confidence. She stepped back, and Mr. Harris turned to the kitchen. "Get the main course ready," he said, "and make sure it's perfect. Emily's table needs care." In the kitchen, the chefs moved with new energy. They had seen how Emily had handled herself. They knew the scene that had just played out. The head chef, a tall man with a trimmed beard, called out for the dishes to be finished. He added a note to the plate handled with care. Emily did not see the note yet, but one of the line cooks smiled at her as she passed by. The small act felt like a quiet thank you. Back at the table.
Yes.
The guests began to talk again, but the sound was softer. Mr. Andrews' anger faded. He did not speak much. His eyes shifted sometimes to Emily, as if measuring something he did not understand. The other guests tried to keep their conversation light. The woman in the red dress kept her hand near the table but not on it. Gray-haired man, who had been quiet, now watched the room with an alert look, like someone who had seen a small truth and was thinking about it. Some of the other diners started to clap softly. It was not a loud clap, just a few quiet taps of forks on glasses near the back. It was not a show for attention. It was a small sound of support. Emily heard it, and she felt something warm spread inside her. She kept working, but her steps were lighter. She checked the table in the corner, brought a fresh bread basket to a couple, and kept an eye on Mr. Andrews' table from the side. The tension there was still there, but it was different now. It was no longer a storm. It was a heavy cloud that might rain, but people were ready. After a few minutes, a man at a nearby table whispered to his friend. She did that without shouting. That took real strength. His friend nodded, eyes still on Emily. Another server, who was usually quiet, walked past with a small, respectful nod in her direction. The restaurant was filled with small signals, quiet and true-like. The way people look at each other after someone chooses to act with courage. Emily finished the rest of her rounds. She kept her eyes forward. She did not look over at the billionaire. Again, unless she had to, because she had said her part. The rest was now a quiet space of watching. She thought about her family again, and how her sister's voice had echoed in her mind. She thought about her mother's advice. She had spoken not with anger, but with truth. That truth, she saw now, had done something. It had shifted the balance. It had made others look, and it had made the billionaire feel something he did not expect. The evening continued. The meal arrived, and the main course was better, served with care. Mr. Andrews still ate in silence mostly. His guests talked in small, quiet bursts. The heat of his earlier anger cooled into something more controlled. The restaurant, which had been distracted, now went back to its rhythm. The music returned in people's ears, soft and steady. Emily kept working, but the look in her heart had changed. She felt a mix of tiredness and quiet pride. She knew the next moments would be important not for fighting, but for staying calm, for showing that respect given could stay, not just be taken back by a single angry word. People would talk about this evening later. Some would tell their friends. Some would remember the moment a young waitress spoke and the room listened. Emily did not know how far the story would go. She only knew she had done what she believed was right. She kept moving through the dining room, serving bread, filling glasses, smiling gently to the guests she passed. The world kept turning around her, some slow, some fast, but inside her, something steady grew. She had stood up, she had held. The restaurant was still full. The night was not over, but the shape of what happened had changed. The restaurant slowly returned to a quieter rhythm, but the air around Mr. Andrews' table had changed again. It wasn't tense like before. Now it held a new kind of tension, one that came from people watching to see what would happen next. Emily moved through the dining room, doing her job, but she could feel a kind of support in the room. It wasn't loud. It was small looks, soft nods, a few gentle smiles from people who were still thinking about what happened. Mr. Andrews ate his main course in silence. He did not shout anymore. He did not slam his utensils. He chewed slowly, like someone trying to decide what to do next. The woman in the red dress leaned forward slightly and spoke to him in a low voice. Emily could not hear the words, but she saw his face soften just a little. The gray-haired man lifted his glass toward Emily with a small, respectful nod, and she hesitated before nodding back. It was not a full thank you, but it was something. It felt like a quiet agreement that she had done something right. The whispers around the restaurant grew, but they were different now. People were talking about the way Emily had stood up. One older man, who had been eating alone near the window, whispered to the young man beside him. She didn't shout. She just said the truth. That's why it hit harder. The young man nodded, then looked over at Emily and gave a tiny thumbs up before turning back to his meal. A teenage busboy, clearing plates, stopped for a second to watch Emily as she passed. He straightened his back just a little, the way someone does when they see a person they look up to. Mr. Harris had not gone back to his station. He stayed near the table, watching quietly. He also watched Emily in the background, making sure she had space to keep working. He knew something had shifted. The billionaire was still sitting there, but the power in the room now had new voices. Behind Emily, he saw the other servers, some standing slightly apart, but all watching. He could see the head chef watching from the kitchen opening, his face calm but proud. Mr. Harris felt a small heat rise in his chest, not from anger now, but from the understanding that a choice had been made. He had chosen, finally, to back her fully. The meal ended. Mr. Andrews sat back in his chair, not speaking much. His guests were quiet too, but they seemed less tight. The woman in the red dress looked at Emily once. Her expression had changed. It had lost the sharp stress from before, and something softer was there, respect maybe. Or the quiet thought that the world could move better with less shouting that Emily brought. The dessert menu, like she always did, Mr. Andrews waved it away with a small motion. His guests each picked a dessert. Emily wrote the order down. She felt tired. Her legs had been moving for hours. Her heart was tight from the earlier fight, but now it was also full of something that felt like quiet strength. With the desserts, the billionaire did not smile, but one of his guests, the gray-haired man, spoke. "Emily," he said softly, "thank you for being honest and calm." That helped. The words surprised her. She kept her face steady. "You're welcome, sir," she replied. The man lifted his glass a little again, and this time it was clearer. His eyes met Emily's briefly. There was a small smile at the corner of his mouth. Others heard him speak. Few heads turned. The woman in the red dress lowered her eyes and then looked up, giving Emily a slow nod. After dessert, the billionaire asked for the bill. Mr. Andrews' tone was quieter than before. He still did not speak to Emily directly. Mr. Harris took care of the bill. He added a small handwritten note on the receipt. "Thank you for your patience." It was subtle. Emily saw the note when she passed by the manager's station later. She looked at Mr. Harris with a small question in her eyes. He only gave a gentle nod, and she understood. Mr. Andrews stood up to leave. He didn't say anything to Emily as he passed. But as he reached the door, he paused. He turned slightly, looking back. The woman in the red dress watched him. He did not come back to the table or approach Emily. He left with his group, the door closing softly behind them. The restaurant held its breath again, then let it out. The sound of conversations returned to normal levels. People finished their meals, some a little slower, as if they wanted to remember the moment correctly. The next few minutes after he left felt like a small calm after a storm. The staff started to move more freely. Someone clapped very softly. Near the kitchen, just a quick tap on a counter, and a few of the other servers smiled and looked toward Emily. She was busy. But when she passed the manager, Mr. Harris lifted his chin slightly in a quiet, approving way. She gave him a small smile in return. The story did not end there. One of the guests who had been watching the whole time got up from his table. Was a middle-aged man with a business card stuffed into his wallet. He walked over to Emily's station, which was near the front. His face was open, respectful. He stopped in front of her and said, "That was brave. You handled it well. I watched how you did not let anger take you, and you kept your calm. People noticed that." Emily's hands were busy, but she stopped. "Thank you, sir," she said. The man pulled a small envelope from his wallet. "My name is David. I own a small magazine. I'd like to put your story in our next issue, and not to embarrass anyone, but to show how people can choose respect over fear." Emily looked at him. Her face changed. There was surprise, and then something like doubt, and then a small smile. "I don't know if I'm the kind of person for that," she said softly. David shook his head gently. "You are. It's not about you. It's about what you did. That matters," she agreed, quietly. He left her a card, and she put it in her apron pocket like a small treasure. Word spread. The restaurant's regulars started talking about the night. Someone who had been at the bar told a friend to come back on Sunday. "You have to see the young woman who stood without yelling. She changed the room." Another guest, a woman with a child, went online and wrote a short post about the waiter who had stayed calm. It didn't mention names, but it said the story was about a young woman standing with truth, and how the room felt different after she spoke. Emily finished her closing tasks. She wiped tables, stacked chairs, and helped clear the last few plates. The shift was almost over. The kitchen lights dimmed slightly, showing the end of the rush. She went to the small break area to take a breath. Her hands finally slowed, allowed herself a short moment to sit. Her body felt tired, but her head was clear. She looked at the small card in her pocket. The magazine owner's name was on it. She thought about the billionaire. She thought about the moment she had said the sentence. She thought about the quiet nod from the gray-haired man, the support from Mr. Harris, the smiles from her coworkers, and the way the restaurant had changed just a little because of that. The next morning, the restaurant opened like any other day. But Emily could feel the difference soon. People who came in for breakfast looked at her with a small sparkle in their eyes. Some ordered her favorite drink without asking, and she gave them a small smile back. Mr. Harris called her into his office. He closed the door gently. "Emily," he said, "I want to thank you. Yesterday could have gone very badly. You handled it with care. I also want you to know I am going to share what happened with the owner. You did something right, and I want to make sure it is known." Emily felt something warm in her chest. "Thank you, Mr. Harris," she said quietly. He added, And if the magazine reaches out, don't be afraid. You can tell the truth. We'll help. She felt a mix of fear and hope. The memory of the night stayed with people. The Billionaires group left with their own stories. Some of his guests talked about the young waitress in private, and one of them, the woman in the red dress, had told a few people that night that Emily had spoken like someone wise beyond her years. The gray-haired man, who had watched quietly, had asked the host for a recommendation on how to support the staff better in future visits. He did not want to make noise. He wanted to act. That was the kind of change Emily had not expected. Emily went home that night feeling tired, but also like she had taken a small step forward, not just for her, but for everyone who watched. She knew things might not always be easy. The world still had loud voices. But she also knew that calm truth could change a room. She held her head a little higher. She did her work the next day with a new, quiet strength. People would talk about her sentence. They would say how it came at the right time. They would say it was simple and that was what made it strong. Emily did not think of herself as a hero. She just thought of herself as someone who had a job to do and a choice to make. That choice had spread beyond her table. The story still had one more turn left, and Emily did not know what would come, but she knew she had helped shape it. The next morning, the restaurant felt different in a quiet way. The regulars came in, and many of them looked at Emily with a small smile or a nod. Some asked for her by name. She felt something warm in her chest, but she stayed the same polite, calm and focused. She kept doing her job. The story of the night before grew like a small fire that passed from person to person. People talked about the young waitress who had stood up calmly and how the room had changed when she spoke. The story was not loud yet, but it had weight. David, the magazine owner, came back that day. He asked for Emily again, brought a small recorder and a notebook. Emily felt nervous, but Mr. Harris was there too. He had told her she could answer only what she felt comfortable with. David started by asking her to tell the story in her own words. Emily spoke slowly. She told him about the night, about the pressure, and about why she said what she did. She did not make the billionaire into a villain. She only talked about the truth of the moment, how she wanted respect, how she needed to keep her own strength, and how the room had listened. David wrote down everything. He asked if he could share the story, and Emily said yes, as long as it stayed true and kind. He promised it would be like that. The article came out 2 weeks later. It did not use big, flashy words. It had a picture of the restaurant from outside and a small photo of Emily with a simple title, "The Waitress Who Spoke and Changed the Room." The story was honest. It talked about how money could make people loud, but calm truth could make them quiet. It talked about how the manager chose to stand with Emily after her sentence. It mentioned the quiet support from other staff and the small nod from the billionaire's guest. The story included a short line from Mr. Andrews' guest who had said, "She spoke like someone wise beyond her years." It did not try to shame the billionaire. It only showed what happened and what came after. The article spread. People shared it online. Some wrote about their own experiences working in service jobs. They said they had seen similar things, and it felt good to read about someone who stood with calm strength. Others wrote about how they had been the person in the room who stayed quiet, but now they thought about what they could do next time. The magazine printed extra copies, and the restaurant kept some on the front desk. Customers read it while waiting for tables. Emily saw faces stop and look at her with a new kind of respect. Her sister called, crying softly because she was proud. Her mother, who was still weak but listening, said, "You showed them, you did not scream. You gave them a mirror." The restaurant owner, a quiet man who rarely came out from the office, asked to meet Emily. He shook her hand with both of his and said, "You gave more than great service. You reminded people of something they forget. Thank you." A small bonus, not a lot of money, but enough to help with the medicine her mother needed. Emily held back tears. She wore the same uniform, but she felt a little taller inside. Mr. Andrews' group left their own stories behind. The billionaire did not write about the night. His team tried to keep the moment from getting too much attention, but people noticed. Some of his business partners had heard the story and asked quietly if he had handled the situation better. His public image started to show small cracks. Not from the article directly, but from people who thought about the way he had acted. A few local writers mentioned how power can silence voices, and how sometimes a small voice can change the air. Mr. Andrews' name was in some posts, but the article did not attack him. That made the reaction harder for him. He was used to people being louder. He did not like that quiet truth followed him. Emily's coworkers treated her differently, but in a good way. They were still her team, still made jokes when the rush hit, and they still checked in with each other when someone was tired. But there was a small shift. The new servers asked her quietly if she was okay when a difficult table came. The busboy, who had straightened when he saw her earlier now, stood a little taller when she walked by. The head chef, who had once only nodded in the kitchen, now gave her a small thumbs up when he saw her working hard. Emily did not seek attention. She did not want people to think she was proud. She was quietly grateful. She still took orders, carried plates, and remembered to ask the small questions that made people feel seen. Like asking the elderly man if he wanted extra bread or the young couple if they needed a refill. The magazine's article brought other chances too. A small local radio station called and asked if they could interview her on a short program about people who show quiet courage. Emily agreed. She sat in front of the microphone, her voice soft but clear. She told the same story again, the same truth. The host asked what advice she would give to others. Emily said, "You don't need to shout. Speak simply. Stand with calm. People will hear you if you mean it." That line went on air. People wrote back to the station, sharing their own quiet moments. Some said they had gone into work the next day with a new choice in their mind. Emily used part of her bonus to buy her mother a small medicine supply that would last a bit longer. She used another part to pay off a bill that had been waiting for a while. She kept a little money, too, and put it in a small box labeled Future. Her sister came, too. Visit with a small cake. They sat in the kitchen, eating quietly, and talked about simple things. Emily did not speak much about her own feelings. Her sister did. "You changed something," her sister said. "People will remember you, but more than that, you changed how you see yourself." Emily smiled. She felt the truth of that. She had taken a choice. She had not hidden when it was hard. She had kept working. That was why she slept better now. Even when the day had been long, the restaurant got new customers who came because of the story. Some came to see Emily. Some came because they wanted to feel part of a place where respect was real. The staff worked to keep the feeling. Mr. Harris made sure that hard moments were talked about in a quiet meeting, asking if the team needed help in reminding them of the rules to treat guests with care and to treat each other with respect. He made a small change in training, not to teach anyone how to argue, but how to stand calmly when things got hard. Emily was part of that new talk. She shared one small piece of advice: listen before you speak, and speak with truth when you have to. They wrote it on a small card and pinned it in the break room. The story did not stop with the restaurant. A few weeks later, a woman who had read the article reached out to a charity group that helped service workers. She told them about Emily and the way the restaurant had responded. The charity sent a small letter to Emily, giving her a certificate of recognition for professionalism and courage. She placed it in a small frame in the break room, next to the card with the advice. Other staff saw it and felt proud too. They would tell new people about the story, not to make them feel like they needed to do the same thing, but to show how one calm choice shaped a whole place. Emily still had hard days. Not every customer was easy. Some days the kitchen was slow, or a mistake happened. But she now had a quiet memory to go back to, a memory of when a room stopped to listen. That memory gave her strength. It made her feel that even small words, when they come from a place of truth and care, could carry more weight than something shouted. Months later, the magazine did a follow-up. They visited Emily again. This time she was not nervous. She told them how things had changed, how the restaurant still kept its small values, and how her family was doing better. The article ended with a paragraph that said, "The moment she spoke was not a one-time event. It was a spark The spark kept burning because others chose to feed it with small acts of kindness and respect. Emily read the piece and tucked it inside her old notebook. She folded the corner of the page so she could find it again. The billionaire's name faded from the small conversations about that night. People remembered Emily's sentence more than the anger that came before it. He still came to the city for his business, and he still dined with people, but the story stayed with him too, in quiet ways. He heard from others that the room felt different when he walked in. He was not sure why, could not change the past, but the night had given him something to think about, a quiet mirror that he had not chosen to look into before Emily kept. Moving forward, she saved some money. She kept helping her family. She kept the card from David in her apron, the small framed certificate on the shelf, and the cornered magazine page in her notebook. She did not need to shine. She only needed to keep her head up and her words steady. The restaurant kept its rhythm and people came. Some came just to feel a part of something kinder, and some came to eat good food. Emily served them all, one table at a time, with the same quiet strength that had changed the restaurant months before.